When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions. I'm your host, Laura Babcock, and joining me on the program is one of the fieriest, toughest, smartest women I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing, talking to, getting to know, and that is Sherry DeNovo. She is, of course, famous for the role she has played in terms of same-sex marriage, in terms of being on the vanguard of many social justice issues. She's also been a politician. Sherry, welcome back to the pod. And can you just tell our audience across Canada, like, what's the latest? I think last time we had you on, you were in an election for a role within the Anglican. Tell us what's going on.
No, United Church.
United
Still
Church, my
that.
bad.
Doesn't happen until the first week of August, so we shall see. I mean, that's a long shot, but I've sort of dusted a little bit of state off, and now I'm dusting, that role, any sort of major role in church off. So it's all good. But anyway, Laura, just back at you about strong women, and thank you for having this and doing this all the time. This is great. The more progressive voices we have, the better in this country.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I couldn't agree with you more, and I apologize for saying Anglican instead of United. I just made the stupid error of trying to run in the heat before the heat wave, and I'm saying to everyone out there, don't, because my brain is a little mush. Sherry's might have to carry the heavy weight on this conversation, but I will say, Sherry, I am in agreement. Of course, we are trying to build a pro-democracy conversation in this country. We have seen what's happening in the United States, but for places like the Midas Touch that started their pro-democracy 5 years ago, and the Bulwark and others, and they've had the OShow on their program, which we deeply appreciate. We understand that what's happening in Canada now is not just a Canadian conversation. We are globally impacted by what's happening with the move to fascism in the United States. And if I'm overstating anything, Sherry, of course, tell me you don't agree. But we cannot separate our economic policies, our social justice policies, anything, our media from what we're seeing down there. And too much of our corporate media, and I think this is something you're passionate about, is
Yes.
owned by the US. So why don't we start there, Sherry? Like, what is hitting you? I mean, I want to talk Carney, I want to talk Ford. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's gone on this week.
Well,
G7.
the media, it's always for politicians, it's always kind of a love, less love with the media, mainstream media. But I mean, the dominance of post media, which really we know is a Trump hedge fund,
Yeah.
is really, you feel it. You really feel it sometimes. I mean, I'll give you a classic case. I mean, I kind of turn on in the morning like a lot of Torontonians do, CP24. It's mainly, okay, so who got killed? What's the weather? What's the drive like? That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And on the day of the massive, King's demonstrations in the States, tens of millions of people. I mean, we've all seen the shots of Golden Gate Bridge and things, just massive people, as contrasted with Trump's military parade, very few. What did they cover? Trump's military parade. Very little coverage of the huge demonstrations. This is the kind of thing that I think we as Canadians get, our hackles up a bit, and we should, right? I mean, we're very elbows up now in our country, and that's wonderful to see. So I think we have to really extend that to our media. And so any alternative media is so welcome now,
Yeah.
because I mean, people like you, I mean, none of us are making a lot of money out of any of this, but I mean, what's really important is getting the news out, is getting the real news out from the ground. So thank you. And
Oh,
yeah,
listen,
keep it going.
it's a collective, right? The O Show has always been a community-based program, even when it was on cable. So it's a collective, and subscribe. We want to get to 5,000 subs. We're almost there. We're next our Canada Day show. We're going to have Charlie Angus back on. Last time he was on, we hit over 10,000 views of the full thing and hundreds of thousands of views of the clips. So it's a community, Sherry, as you know from all of your work and all of your groundbreaking around social justice issues. It has to be the community and the Kings. The No Kings. We promoted it here on the pod, and I spent the entire night that night dedicated to just amplifying all of the posts of all of the protests in the U.S. because so much of building this voice is about amplification. And there's actually been Harvard studies done that say the way that fascist regimes are toppled is when you get 3.5% of the population in a sustained peaceful, twice as likely to be successful if it's peaceful with no violence, because a peaceful protest movement at that critical mass is continuously inviting people in because it's peaceful. And that has been the only thing really that works. So there's another No Kings protest. I'm so glad you brought it up, happening on July 4th. I hope Canada, once again, Toronto, once again, has a local one. Ottawa does, cities around the world. Like, we're in this together. If you just look at the G7, Carney decided to expand it open to really make it a summit of world leaders beyond just the G7, because, the elephant in the room who left early is that Trump has destabilized the planet and we're at the risk of war and everything else. We are at war.
Absolutely. And when you see Charlie, say hi and tell him I've been trying to reach him. I'd like to have him on my show too. And also ask him, as I've been asking other NDPers, I did a series on the future of the NDP. If he said no to running, keep asking. Keep asking.
Well, trust me, my followers of the OShow
are like, right?
I told him to look at the comments on the pod, because there's like 100 people going, Charlie, run.
I know, we need you. Yeah. So I mean, it's really important to build this resistance, and that is what it is globally. And interestingly enough, I'm like dinosaurs, so I'm old enough to remember the Berlin Wall's fall, and everybody was shocked of the boomer generation that it didn't take World War III, right? To overcome Stalinism. And yet it just kind of crumbled, right? Yeah. Well, it didn't just crumble. We know from history that tons of people, as you were saying, that 3.5%, tons of people for many, many years had been working behind the scenes in churches, in communities. Like, that resistance was there, and it was just squelched until until actually the turning point tends to come in that kind of situation when the guards don't fire anymore, when they said, no, let them go, right? When you watch the wall coming down, and it's just because they're your brothers and your sisters and your relatives, right? And ultimately, when it's that widespread, when the military doesn't fire on its own people, that moment, that's when the regime, all the tyrants fall. And we know this in history, they do fall.
So, but the key there is knowing it in history. I think there's two parts. It's one, knowing it in history. So for people who, I was around, I was a little younger during Gen X, but I remember the Berlin Wall falling. And of course, I didn't know the history of protests behind it. But when we look at any wins in terms of same-sex marriage, in terms of, any kind of rights, they've been hard-fought battles. They've been mass protests. They've been mostly peaceful endeavors. And so I think people don't know that history, and it's important to have that reminder. But on the media piece, something I heard the other day from Ben Rhodes he was on the Bulwark podcast, which is brilliant. And I've always, I think, known this intuitively, and you do probably as well from being in communications. First responders in communications, the first response to any story wins the battle, right? So you don't have time to sit around and formulate a response to fascist propaganda. The second it hits our social, and that's why I stay on that wretched X platform, because that's where it's all coming in and being tested in this nation. All the post-me, all the stuff you talked about, it comes in through that. Blue Sky's lovely, and I like to be there, and I love threads, but trust me, if you want to see what MAGA's testing, it's coming in through X. And we have to have a rapid response to it immediately to reframe it to truth, right?
And I'm so glad you said that, because opting out, there's this thing, and I keep a toe into Blue Sky too, but you're right. X is the political platform.
Yeah.
As Twitter it always was, as X it still is. We have to be there. We have to be where the power is. And this is, I think, it's both and. We need the streets, we need the activism, and we need the political champions. We need both. And I've always said this to activists, the best lobbyists I've ever come across were not like big firms with lots of money, were that individual who was a squeaky wheel, who just made it their real platform to just visit everybody. Like, everybody knew Susan Gapka, for example, when it came to trans rights, right? Yeah. Everybody at Queen's Park knew, because she just went to everybody. Don't skip parties. Yes, we're all partisan, we get it, but don't skip anyone. Like, keep the conversations going across the aisle. That's the way I got everything done. Keep the conversations going, and it'll be interesting to see, because my heart kind of rings with keep him out. He's a criminal. Keep Trump out of the country. But on the other hand, we're not, I don't think, there yet. I think there's still a little bit sliver of hope that this crazy person can be reined in somehow a little bit, right? So keep that conversations going. And I think that's really, really important too. But yeah, I mean,
And that's
I've been
what
doing
Carney did, right?
it a long time, and I can tell you it's, find the champions, support them, and also be an activist, like both
and be loud. Like we
Yeah.
have to be loud. Like one of the things the Democrats found in the US, and they're now analyzing and understanding, thank God, is that they took their foot off the gas because they lost the election. And those couple of months that they thought they had to lick their wounds and recalibrate, they didn't have that time. And the amount that Trump pushed through Project 2025, they were ready to go. And so
Yeah.
those
Well,
lost months matter, right?
yeah, and absolutely. And the other thing that we should pride ourselves in Canada is that we have a much more democratic system. Quite
Yes.
frankly, in the States, with their election financing laws, you
Yeah.
have to kowtow to Wall Street to get elected. That skews everything.
Right.
Like that means that you need billionaires behind you. And when you need billionaires behind you, they're going to get what they want. And that's not always in the public interest, as we now see, right? We have better financing laws. We have better regulations in Canada. We have for a while, and hard fought, again, gains that we've made progressively. So we're much more democratic here, quite frankly, and always, even in the way we elect our people. Could be better, always argue, always push, but it is certainly better than the United States. I mean, you don't have to be rich to run. I'm not rich. I ran, I won, I won, I won, I won, right? I mean,
How many times did
I
you win,
mean,
Terry? How many times?
four times. So, I mean, here's the thing, like you don't have to be rich to run.
Right.
And that is not the same in the United States, or have a rich, person behind you. So, I mean, these are all things we should rejoice in being Canadian. And again, yeah, and keep speaking across the aisle. I mean, that's so important. We're not at a time in our history we can afford to make enemies forever, if they can possibly be coaxed, cajoled, reasoned over. I mean, there may come a time that's not possible. We get it. But I mean, I don't think we're quite there yet. So let's keep the conversations going.
So let me take you through a couple of hot touch points because there's so much. And so from that lens, I mean, you're NDP lifelong. I'm lifelong independent, but I've been pro Carney because he seemed like an absolute best alternative in this moment. Carney took that approach with the G7, letting Trump come, inviting Modi in, right? Like people that and places where we have problems with them. But I think it was done from that spirit of until we can't, we must try, right? So how do you feel about a couple of things Carney's doing? One is let's go right to the heart of what people want me to talk about with you today is Bill, I think it's C2, the one that's looking at fast tracking major projects for the country.
Yeah.
It's rushing through. It's got conservative support, but it also I have concerns like I did with Bill 5, where Ford, and we'll get to him and his racist remarks in a minute. But I mean, Bill 5 was literally a Trump-like, let's shove through legislation to have economic zones and bypass Indigenous concerns. Do you see that with C2? Do you have those same concerns?
Well, I mean, here's the overriding concern with Carney, I suppose, from our point of view, is that I mean, this is a man who ran Brookfield. Brookfield was known for, offshore havens, tax havens.
Right.
One of our problems in this country is, as it is in the States, more so, is taxing the wealthy. We used to have, reasonable taxes for the wealthy. And this is supported, by the way, by the vast majority of Canadians, that we have more taxes for the wealthy, less for the middle class, because the taxes have been pushed down the road, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a concern. Now it's a double-edged sword, right?
Okay.
I mean, he knows how to get rich people out of paying taxes.
Right.
Might he be able to get them to pay taxes because of the knowledge he has? So Carney's kind of that person. So again, with immigration, bills that he's toying with, they feel a little MAGA to me, maybe, but maybe, so I think I think most Canadians kind of for whatever we think of it, parked their support with Carney because they thought he could topple Poilievre, and he did, and they were right. So now that we've got him, I think first of all, it's early days, but let's see what comes. Do we need incredible investment in this country? Yes, we do. So overall, I'm supportive of putting money into getting something going here.
Yeah.
Now, when we get to Ford, we can talk about how that can go very awry, right?
Absolutely.
Very awry.
But I
You
think
need
that's key though.
eyes on.
Yeah.
This is where the opposition comes in invaluably, right? This is where parliamentary committees, and by the way, folks, you see, question period, it's theater, but everybody has to work together on those committees. So when this goes to the committee stage or even fast tracks through them, you need those eyes on who are looking for the flaws in the plan, right? Because we all get blinders. So that's where democracy kind of works, self-correcting. So let's hope that lens is still applied so that, friends of friends don't get all, the contracts kind of deal, which we will talk about with Ford in a minute. But, so that, it's an equal playing field and so that we really get what we need built. I think, this is true of everything. It's certainly true of housing. My God, we need houses. But it's also true of all of our infrastructure and everything. I mean, you only have to live in the city of Toronto. I know you don't, but I mean, transit, we're like 20 years behind, right?
Oh, I'm there all the time, Sherry, and I can't stand it. But like I was in Waterloo with a client the other day, and the LRT just whooshed right by, and it was so lovely. And I'm like, looking at Toronto and Hamilton, and I'm going, ah.
I know. So again, this is planning, this is infrastructure, this is money from all levels of government have to work together, right?
So can I just interject
yeah.
on you with Carney? So where I am is I'm cynical because I've been covering local corrupt politics in this town for 25 years, right? Call-in shows on cable. And I've seen lots and lots of corruption. I've seen the stagnation that comes from it, the generational poverty that comes from not building up our communities. The pressure is on the people who suffer in poverty. Tomorrow on the line, there'll be over 1,000 people that we'll be serving and I'll be dancing with, and it'll be bloody hot. There'll be toxification of people's blood if they're on any kinds of substances from the heat. It's going to be horrible and sad and rough. And sometimes it looks like a war zone. And so to me, these things are not divorced from the reality that I experience on the street, and I just started working with this population, and I've learned so much. So when I make my political critiques, people can say that I'm being negative, but what I'm being is protective of the people who don't have a voice, right? And so with Carney, I have suspended hope, meaning I'm not usually hopeful with politicians, but I'm going to give him some hope because, to your point, he has the skills to do what he says he's going to do. And he hasn't proven yet, like Ford, to be corrupt and to be benefiting his friends and doing these disgusting deals and circumventing all this stuff we'll get to with Ford. So with Carney, yes, I see all the risks that you identify. He could take things in a direction that is profiting the wealthy and further subjugating the rest of this country. I think his middle class tax cut. I think his commitment to 1 million houses. I think his desire to have a more dominant economy for negotiating better outcomes for Canadians, his free passes to Canadian things to encourage. I mean, I'm seeing signs from him, Sherry, that are letting my hope continue. But at any moment, I'm going to push back. So with C2, for all the viewers out there who wanted me to weigh in on it, I feel more cautiously optimistic with that legislation in spite of its red flags than I certainly do with Bill 5 because the actor behind it is
there's no question. I mean, in comparison to Bill 5, I mean, Bill 5 is MAGA all through and through. I mean, it's a grab, it's a power grab, and that's very, very clear. So yeah, I mean, I think with Ford, I mean, this is well, we can maybe segue into
go for it.
that.
Go for it.
But yeah, I mean, really the bottom line is corruption, absolutely. And it's taking public property, and we'll start with, where should we start? Greenbelt, but it's not just Greenbelt. It's
No, Sherry, we can't start there because Ford said we don't give two hoots.
it's there, it's Therm, at Ontario Place, and now it's Indigenous land in the north. It's taking public land that is not his and selling it cheap to his rich friends. This is very clear. In every single case, this is what it is. Now, I don't know what's taking the RCMP so long when, the privacy commissioner and others have kind of weighed in on this and said, excuse me, deleted emails, excuse me, code words. I mean, come on now. I mean, so, and again, every public person in the public knows the facts. I mean, the same developers he invited to his daughter's pre-wedding party, same developers who were getting chunks of the greenbelt. Like when it smells like corruption, it's probably corruption. And that's what it looks like, right? And I know Steve Clark took the fall for all of that, but let's face it, it was more than just Steve Clark. So this is really his administration's way of doing things. And so
Is he Canada's Trump? Because he feels like Canada's Trump to me at this point.
well, in comparison to Trump, Doug Ford is the paragon of sanity. I mean, in comparison to Trump, he's like, he's like a liberal, It's like I would compare, when I think of conservatives, I always think about Bill Davis. Like Bill Davis, when I think about Bill Davis now, who's Stephen, once described as, when he was leader of the NDP, said, he was a beautiful man. I mean, really, he was like a socialist in comparison to Ford. So everything's comparative, right? Everything's comparative.
Like George Bush, that we objected to so much, is like a sweetheart compared to Trump.
I know, now he seems sane and
He tried to save people who had AIDS, right?
I know. I mean, so, it just, but I mean, again, this is a problem with progressives, I think, too. And I mean, it's a comment on us. Like we're always going to have those voices from the right. And we can't probably, we hope we can change them, and we try, but meanwhile, we can change ourselves. Like that, we have complete control over. So I really like to look at, what did we do wrong? How can we do better? What changes can we make? Well, number one, when you look at Biden's administration, when you look at NDP governments, including Bob Rae's, when you look at, so-called progressive liberal governments in this country, what you see is when conservatives come to town, when they get majorities, they rewrite everything. They don't care if there's 10,000 people on the front lawns in demonstrations. They just do what they want. Yeah. Now, just imagine for a minute, going back a few decades, if progressive governments had the same backbone, had completely enshrined. Imagine if Biden had done this, so that it was much less easy for Trump to override everything, right? What if, Bob Rae had, or, pick a progressive, leader of a province. I mean, what if they had, really had the backbone? I always think
Trudeau had the background to ban some of this foreign propaganda shit.
Big time. And what if Trudeau had, brought in pharmacare? And what if Trudeau had, brought in, done something much more major about housing, and quite frankly, brought in getting rid, which he promised, of first past the post. So we had more of a democracy. So if progressives actually just even lived up to their promises, but went beyond, which is what conservatives tend to do, we'd be in a much better place. So let's develop the kind of backbone you have, Ms. Laura, for doing, saying the truth and talking truth to power, because we really need to do that. And you can still do that. You can still do that and speak across the aisle, because, it's not a conversation, it's not a debate if you don't disagree about some things. It's not a conversation unless you can agree on something. So
I think there's two parts to that. And I just want to push back a little bit. I've had a company called Power Group for 25 years because I've seen power as being necessary to advance society and business and everything else. Power is not pejorative. And I think progressives have seen power as pejorative. They think of power in the sense of taking it away from people. I see power as being how to help people. It just depends on how you apply it, but you have to have it. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I'm always pushing because I believe in that. However, the across the aisle thing, like I said yesterday on social media, because people are like, oh, Poilievre's living rent-free in your head. I'm like, no, he's living rent-free in Stornaway. The squatter of Stornaway is a problem for Canada. And it's not just a problem for the Conservative Party. I don't think he's electable, and I'm hoping he doesn't even win his by-election. I might have Bonnie on, who's an independent, running against him on the program, just so we can have that conversation like we did with Bruce Fanjoy. But I said to people, I want a conservative leader who I don't think would immediately make us a 51st state. I don't care who it is, but I don't want it to be Poilievre because he seems to me to be weak and very MAGA. He seems to believe in the same things, say the same things, act the same way. He wouldn't be like Trump. He would just, I think, give it over to Trump. And I don't want that guy leading one of our major parties. So I said, conservatives, if you want to win, if you want me to shut up, how about you don't let him pass the leadership review? First, let's stop him if we can in battle in that riding. But I want the other big Canadian party to have a decent leader. Like I don't truly. So just getting back to
They're
Ford,
right.
what did you think of his racist comments? I'm calling them racist. I don't know if you think they're racist,
They're
but
absolutely racist. Yeah, I mean, it's the old colonial largesse, like how dare you speak up when we're giving you this, right? Excuse me, their land or territory, like it's exactly that kind of colonialist racism that First Nations, Indigenous have been, fighting against for,
ever.
centuries. So I mean, so that's where it came from. That's what it is. And his apology, was just to a few chiefs. Let's keep that in mind. And it was not accepted by everyone. And more to the point, even if it was, yes, we'll accept your apology, it wasn't enough. I mean, they're demanding, as they should, action, right? As we all should. I mean, yes, we all say land acknowledgements, but they become a rote thing to do unless there's something behind it. So to your point about power, absolutely. I mean, think about it, power to the people, I mean, that's really the power that we want, right? I mean, what we want is really democratic power. We want to politicians, even if we have the system that we have, which isn't perfect, so you can get elected with a small percentage of the vote. Even then, we want them to listen to the majority. We want them to, pay attention. And I just to shout out to social media, because everybody's like down on social media. I honestly think that particularly with X and before Twitter, like, do we wish X was owned by someone else? Oh, yes, we do. But
Even changing Grok. He's even changing Grok to not like when people use his own AI platform to test his lies. Now Elon wants to have Grok not like actually telling us what's going on, right? So we are in like it's a torture
well, as
chamber.
someone who is apparently, ghost banned, but still out there. I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, the reason that those social medias are great for average people that don't have a lot of money is that if you can get something trending, right? If you can get something listened to there, that is a de facto poll for politicians. I don't care what stripe they are. Polling is expensive. So they can look at that and they say, oh my goodness, it's trending. Oops, I mean, back in the old days, when I was in the office, I mean, it would be emails, if you get flooded with emails, they could be just the same email, but the numbers of people sending them, it's a numbers game, right? So, I mean, when you get a lot of people that get behind an idea, it all of a sudden begins to influence policy. And that is really important that we keep control or at least keep involved with what we've got. That doesn't
Isn't it
cost,
Napoleon who said
right?
that? Well, didn't Napoleon say quantity has a quality all its own?
That's true.
Right? So I mean so I'm with you. Like when I do a particular, I'm a geek, so I look at every single metric I can, and I know which posts of mine are going to get hundreds of thousands of views, right? There is a certain way to get a lot of momentum, and I have seen whether it's getting rid of half of our council in Hamilton and changing our mayors and what happened with the federal election, I have seen the power of, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about of pro-democratic voices leveraging and amplifying one another on social media, right?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
bug a lot of progressives with my posts to say, can you amplify this? Because we're busy. We don't all see it. But like everybody do that. Just ask people in their DMs, say, can you amplify this? Together, we've got some pretty big platforms out there, Sherry.
Yes, no, and there, yes, no, but I mean, the resistance, for example, to Trump
Yes.
on Elon Musk's social media is enormous,
Yeah.
as we know, right? So, I mean, it is possible to use the master's tools against the master.
Ooh.
That is possible, right? And so I think we just need to keep doing it all. is really what it comes down to. I mean, we need to keep doing it all. We cannot ignore politics and the traditional political structure. We cannot. I really want more women to run. I really want more people of color and more queer people to run. I want that. We should encourage that. We should encourage involvement in that. Find a candidate, support the candidate, blah, blah, right? But also get out on the street when it's
That
necessary.
takes so much,
You know.
and when I say balls, I mean it in the non-gender specific sense, right? It like yeah, I love the Madonna quote years ago that she has them between her ears, right? Like I mean, it takes tremendous cojones to run with the political violence we're seeing. I mean, during the election, I was getting death threats just for my social posts.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can't.
I get like ugly stuff happening all the time. I had to install a camera outside my house. You know, I mean, this is yeah, this is an ongoing issue, especially for women politicians. And that's why I don't read comments generally.
Yeah, me neither, generally.
Because comments will just drag you down. Because sadly, we've been conditioned, particularly as women, to take everything personally, right? So it's better just not to go there. It's like, often, I know you don't do this because you're more professional than I am, but I often don't like watching my own media because I'll focus on, oh, my collar is under, or, oh, why did I wear that lipstick or something? Like, it's just socialization, right? But I mean, keep doing it, like keep on keeping on. And I
To
can't.
be honest, Sherry, like I mean, everyone, I used to get letters when I was on cable if my lipstick was too red, right? Like little old ladies would write letters. We love you so much, but you look like a prostitute, right? Like I've had it for 25 years. So I think maybe it's not that I'm more professional, it's just that I might have a thicker skin. So what I like to do is I like to pick like the insult of the day, because they come in droves, right? They're all programmed MAGA campaigns. So I get targeted. So I pick like the dominant insult of the day and then I play with it, and then I gain another 1,000 followers, right? So
Yeah. No, I mean, it is fun to do that. Yeah, it is fun. I just, I don't
But
know.
it's not
I
that
mean,
it doesn't affect me, it's just that I've
there
learned to say,
is
you know what, fuck off.
and I think it's really important to know occasionally, this is particularly true with like sort of the trans rights issues that I'm involved with. Like, it's really, really important to know that they're not just south of the border. Like I keep saying this, like we get a very false sense of comfort up here that kind of convoy MAGA, crazy right-wing lunacy is just Trump land. No, it's here. It's very much here. And you can see that.
Yes.
If you're engaged in social media, right? You can see that. And so I think we need to know that, yes, we are in a sense surrounded by some enemies. We are, and not to be naive about it, but don't let it slow you down. In fact, let it rev you up, because the more we know they're out there, the more we need to be out there. We do outnumber them. So let's use our numbers and let's make sure that that voice is crying in the wilderness, and don't give in to it. Don't never ever give in to it. Like always answer fire with fire, like just be there, right? And I think that's so important, especially
preach like the Reverend you are.
Well, no, but I think it's really, really important because, people tend to be too, I always say nice is a 4-letter word, like, yes, you want to talk across aisles. Yes, you want to, but you want to do it from a place where they know where you stand,
right.
So there's no question that who you are and what you stand for is clear. And then there's no problem being pleasant to people, right? But yeah, I mean,
nice is different from, like I always say, kind is different from nice. I'm kind to people, but I'm not nice. And I'm not humble, because humble is not the goal. Like my goal is to use whatever power I've accrued in my life, and I have the privilege to have, to fight for other people who don't have the power and the privilege, period.
Absolutely. And really, I mean, just to finish the sermon very quickly, but I mean, what's really kind of the loser in all of what's changed with MAGA and everything else? It's been going on for decades. Like, it's slow, but it's here, right? Fascism is here. Is that we've lost the common values. I mean, the common values of we are our brother's keeper, we are our neighbor's keeper, that it really is important to pay your taxes so that we have roads, so that we have social services for people who really need it, so that we have affordable housing, because otherwise, guess what? about, you have what we find in our cities now, encampments. I mean, when I grew up in Toronto, everybody would have been horrified. It would have been declared a national state of emergency. A half of the number of homeless that we have now on our streets. But we become so inured to stepping over bodies on our streets. Think about that. We've become so inured to not even check whether that person that you walk past in the morning on your way to work is still alive. This kills your soul. And that's the ugliest part of what fuels the MAGA reality, right? Is that it starts to kill your soul, where it's all about me. It's just how I'm doing, what's best for me, and others be damned, and whatever they get, that's up to them, right? That reality is not part of any of our spiritual traditions, I can tell you, and it was never part of our tradition, and now it's seeping in, and it's becoming a dominant voice if we let it. So yeah.
Just on that, and I know we're coming close to our time here. One of the reasons why I decided to do the profiles of the individuals that I was meeting, working on the line for people in hunger and homelessness, with their permission, of course, was because until I understood who they are and why they're in that situation, I had my own bias and my own structures of beliefs, right? And so I thought, not everybody can come down here and do this. I'm privileged to have this access. So with permission, I'm going to share their stories, because it's about moving the Overton window, right? Like, we have to move the way people see issues and people. It is a national emergency, homelessness. There are 81,000 homeless people in Ontario, and we have a corrupt premier literally taking money and giving it to his friends and paying 3 times as much for private nursing than he needs to, eviscerating the public healthcare system, and terrible outcomes in long-term care, putting our seniors and most vulnerable at horrendous risk, and not helping autism families get the early intervention they need to have the lives for their children. I mean, it's not just about this economic need to protect jobs and people who are laid off because of tariffs. We have an entire strata of our society in this province that is being absolutely bullied, talked down to, and literally, shit on by this premier, and it is disgusting. And they are losing their fingers from cold. They are losing their hope from the corruption and the cruelty. And so Premier Ford, I can say that he's sorry that he said in a moment of passion the racist thoughts that he believes, but guess what? It's action that we watch, right? You crocodile teared it about the green belt. Oh, I'm so sorry, folks. So sorry that I lied and I tried to take the green belt. Won't do that again until I figure out how I can do it again. And that happens to be through economic zones. Is probably, he just had to put it on the back burner. It's bullshit when Ford apologizes, and we know this. So, I'm glad as a society, Sherry, that we were able to push him, and to the First Nations have enough power to push him to make that apology within 24 hours. We still haven't lost all sense of dignity in this country and in this province, but it's bullshit until we see him give them the kind of rights that they have constitutionally.
Yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely. And that is true of everything. So we know too, because it's at the scale right now, that we can't give money to everybody we walk past. You wouldn't have anything left, right? If we did. We know that charity is not the answer here. We know that justice is. So it's always going to be justice, not charity. And we have to demand that justice. And that's what we can do to help. But we can't ignore it either. And we cannot ever write off another human being as being less valuable than we are. I do funerals still all the time. It's always an honor. Many of them I do for, often women who've died, and there are 3 people in the room acknowledging them, right? And I always say, this person was as important as if they'd had 3,000 at their funeral. This person is as valuable and as worthy as anyone else. And that's core. That should be core value. And so we need to get back to that. And we need to remind our neighbors of
I love
that.
that, because, truly, if as a society, it's not just the threat of fascism, what it might mean in terms of all the horrible stuff we're seeing ICE do, and all the dehumanizing and all the horrific. I mean, we're all watching this nightmare in live time. It's that it's countries that just squeak away from it, or just let it go unchallenged. It's destroying our soul, and it's lowering our expectations, and my daughter said to me, like, I hope we get through this fascist post-pandemic world war before my kids so we can have a post-generation boomer, that's like, but she's 14 and she's saying that, Sherry,
Yeah, I
so
know. I know. So it's to our children and our grandchildren, but it's also to those suffering as you do now, and as we all should do. I mean, as long as there's one person homeless, we have a housing issue.
you're right.
And we have 81,000, as you just pointed out, that are
Just in
homeless.
Ontario, over 200,000, almost 300,000 in Canada.
This is shocking.
It is
And as a former street kid myself,
right.
I mean, I used to know the names of the homeless. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, not all of them, clearly. I mean, but I mean, it was, and it was still awful, but it was manageable. It is so far beyond manageable. And I went back to school because I could live on welfare, what was then called social assistance, student assistance. So I could rent a room, I could feed myself, I could go to school, same as university. I mean, these, seem like privileges now, but they weren't. They were rights. We have lost our rights, and that's what it comes down to. It's a justice issue.
Well said. I could talk to you forever. We will definitely have you back. I never know what my guest is going to talk about, so I just let it go where it flows. But the conversation around how we have to be fierce fighters for our democracy right now, because as you said, fascism is here. Obviously, that's going to be my clip coming out of this, Sherry. It's here, Canada. Carney might be fighting well on the federal level. Trump is getting I meant to say Ford is getting way too close to Trump tactics, and I'm very alarmed by what's happening in Ontario and in Alberta, but specifically Ontario, we all need to watch. It's here now. And we have to fight it through social media. We have to fight it through protests. We have to fight it through working across the aisle, finding our champions. We have to fight it by not letting the hate and the scariness of it push us down. Get a rest, get up, get back in the fight every single day, because that's what it's going to take to get through this time we're in.
And I should add, just as the cherry on that Sunday, Laura, is that we do it out of joy and love. We do it because that's the way to have a joyous, loving, real, lived life.
And that's
why we do it. We can't just always do it out of anger. We do it out of love. So I'll just leave you with that, because that's the party. That's the real joy in life, is to be on the side of justice. Like, what else do we spend our lives doing?
Cheers. Right. I'll give that, and I just have to sip. Even I was waiting till I was dehydrated enough to have a sip of alcohol after running the stairs. Joe Rogan said a number of years ago, and it's going viral now, we get 100 years on this place. If you're not going to care about other people, then I don't want you on the team, because you're not part of the team. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? So out of joy and love, and you've got Pride to go to, and cheers to Pride to all who celebrate. And it should, as I said on the last podcast, be all of us. But let me get into that, sir.
Well, this afternoon is actually a demo organized by trans folks. So how appropriate, like they did this before these recent announcements coming out of the States, where, I mean, we are literally in the States a step away from rounding them up into, like,
Trump threatened it
with the kind of icing only for trans and queer folk, and not just trans, because if the L's and the G's think that it's going to avoid them, they have, another thing coming. So I mean, so it's a demonstration. Next weekend is Pride. I'm going to do as much of it and all of it as I can. But Laura, always a pleasure.
Go forward in love and power, everyone. Thank you. And have a good weekend. We'll see you next Friday on the OShow, everyone.
Bye-bye.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. And with a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. Yeah, there's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. You gotta stand for something or fall for it all. Canada, you hear the call of the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow, OShow.
Your merch bid.